and won't accept responsibility. He clearly is in charge of our national borders. He clearly is in charge of quarantine issues, and he clearly has access to the infrastructure through the RAAF VIP fleet that could be put in place right now today, bringing home 100 at a time from Europe and bringing home people from the region. This would be a practical step which would make a major difference, as well as, of course, he has access to the Australian National Airline and other airlines based here in Australia, which could have planes chartered. It is simply unacceptable that the Prime Minister continues to say that there's nothing he can do about it, and he hopes to have these families home by Christmas. Well, I think those who are desperate to get home should be brought home in September.
But the issue is, Mr Albanese, it's not the aircraft as such, it's the caps. If the caps are lifted from the States, wouldn't the aircraft fly?
Look, this is just an excuse by Scott Morrison. What we know is that Queensland, Northern Territory and Western Australia have all said if the Commonwealth assists with quarantine issues that they are responsible for, then they would certainly encourage more people to come. It's not like there's a shortage of hotel space in this country. The Prime Minister might have noticed that tourists aren't coming here, and hotels certainly have available space. So it is just beyond my comprehension how the Prime Minister can continue to duck and weave from responsibility on this issue. The so-called National Cabinet, that's proving itself to be neither national nor a cabinet, is meeting again on Friday. Surely you can have outcomes. But the Prime Minister can do something more immediate with the aircraft that he directly has at his disposal.
But the states haven't increased their caps since they were introduced in July.
The states have said that they will.
But so shouldn't the government, do you think the government should set up a federal quarantine facility?
Well, of course, the federal government's responsible for quarantine. This states issue is just an excuse for non-action. The Australian government is in charge of our borders, or it's in charge of nothing. It's in charge of quarantine, very clearly. This is a national government responsibility, and there needs to be leadership shown here. The only thing that is missing here isn't hotel space, it's leadership, and the Prime Minister can show leadership by giving his plane, which by and large has not been used at the moment, to bring Australians home.
So do you want to see sites like Christmas Island or Howard Springs in the Northern Territory used to quarantine these people?
I want to see Australians brought home. Australians can be brought home very easily. There is a lot of space available. It is, the Commonwealth have said, the examples that you give are from states that have today reiterated, the Northern Territory, West Australia and Queensland, that they are quite happy to have more people coming into their states and territories if the Commonwealth helps with quarantine. But be very clear, the Queensland government doesn't control our borders, the national government does.
So when you say more support, do you mean doctors, teams to help hotel quarantine in these states, support to come from the federal government?
The states, I'm not saying it, the states have made comments today.
Do you think the federal government should help the states with that?
Well, the states have made comments today of asking for more support, but the Commonwealth is in charge of quarantine. The Commonwealth is in charge of our national borders. What we have now is, quite frankly, the absurd situation whereby, as this pandemic has gone on, the Commonwealth has passed off more and more responsibilities to the states. But it is common sense tells you that the states are not in charge of our national borders and are not in charge of who comes in to this country by aeroplane. The national government is. It's the national government that issues visas.
People have had since March, since the PM said, look, it's time to come home. Do you buy the argument that, well, that's plenty of time and people have got themselves into this position now?
Many of them have tried to come home for many months and they've been frustrated. We hear stories about people who've had tickets booked on planes only to have those planes cancelled. We then have them book again and have those planes cancelled. This is incredibly frustrating for people. Others have had to leave the country to, I heard on radio just this morning, the family speaking about an elderly man who has two siblings, one of whom unfortunately committed suicide recently in the United Kingdom. His sibling went across to make arrangements for the funeral. That is now over. This gentleman needs his son to provide support for him, and he can't get him home.
The Prime Minister was in last week talking about gas companies and threatening to the government to start building a gas company before coal companies retire. I mean, would you support a federally owned gas company at somewhere like Kurratury?
Well, the government has been confused, of course, for a long time. They ran a campaign for years saying that Liddell should stay open. What that did, of course, was provide uncertainty for AGL and companies that were saying they wanted to invest in indispatchable power to replace the power that comes from the Liddell power station. Now, that was for year after year after year. And then they went to the last election saying that they wanted new coal-fired power plants. Matt Canavan has been on TV this morning talking about the commitment that they gave. Today's their 19th attempt at an energy policy that isn't a broad energy policy. No one's opposed to new gas if the investment is made there. But what the thing that has held back a new investment across the board, whether it be gas or renewables, is uncertainty. We wrote to the Prime Minister in June offering bipartisanship when it comes to energy policy, having a framework there that would drive investment. The Prime Minister didn't bother to respond to that proposal. So I think that we'll wait and see what comes. A lot of the announcements today, of course, how many times can you announce the transmission proposal in terms of Basslink?